Good afternoon, beautiful people. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of We're Talking to You. And I'm one half of your dynamic duo, Jay Dominique, aka J Dot.
And I'm the other half, your guy Prometheus, the one who stole fire from the gods and brought it to the people.
Welcome to another episode. We're super duper excited. All right. Today, we're going to dive into the power of preventative care and why it's crucial for long term health, especially within the Black male community. We're going to discuss how early pre screening, lifestyle changes, and the integration of holistic medicine can help close the health gap for those who grew up without access to consistent health care or education. This conversation is about breaking generational cycles, promoting health literacy, and empowering men to take control of their wellness before illness takes control of them. Thank you for tuning in. Let's talk about how to prioritize healthcare today and how it can protect our future tomorrow. So what we want to do is we want to break it down into four little segments. For those of you that are going to decide how far you're going to tune in, we're going to talk about diet. We're going to talk about exercise or lack thereof becoming sedentary. We're going to talk about this concept of access versus luxury. And then we're going to circle back and bring it home with education. And so no better way to start off than to kick it to my man Pro, because you have your hands in this whole concept of diet and how it helps to put you on a better path towards health as well. What says you, sir?
So diet is one of those tricky concerns that within our healthcare system or the way we live in society, we don't really understand it. We don't really talk to it. We look at diet as an after action. There's always something you can watch on TV at night that promotes some sort of fad diet. See how I gained 20 pounds of muscles in 6 weeks by eating liver or living off of one thing or another as opposed to this or that. And that's so it's fad and it's dangerous, but it's also an oversimplification of what diet truly is. Diet, in my opinion, is more about what you do on a consistent basis and how it benefits you or does not benefit you. So, first of all, let me say before we go into this, whatever you hear from me is not to be a substitute for anything you may or may not be going through, medically speaking. And as always, before you change any lifestyles or do anything, please seek advice from your medical healthcare professionals. That being said, diet for me, all right? So for those that don't know, I have been primarily plant-based for about the last 4 years. I've been flirting with it off and on since about 2016. But in 2020, 21, I made this shift to actually go primarily plant-based. And what was the catalyst for me is that in 2016, I was diagnosed with stage 3 kidney disease. There were some genetic predispositions that made me a candidate and likely somebody who would get chronic kidney disease. However, the progression I would say is probably what was related to me not fully understanding how food metabolizes within my body, right? If anybody remembers me from 20 years ago, I drank, I ate, I did what I wanted, I ate what I wanted. I took advantage when McDonald's would have 99-cent quarter pounders on Thursday, 99-cent Big Macs on Friday, 99-cent Big and Tasties on Wednesday. I was on it. I had a Coca-Cola addiction, and I felt like because for the most part I was already active and in shape and healthy in terms of exercising and living a non-sedentary lifestyle, I could eat what I want. Not understanding diet is more than just what you put in your body. It's understanding how what you put in your body metabolizes in your body based on several factors. When speaking to Black people and those of the African diaspora, we are primarily most of us are O positive blood. So when you understand your blood type, you recognize your how based off of your genetic makeup in your blood is what should tell you the types of foods you should be consuming and to what frequency. I'll give you an example. For those of us who are O positive, myself included, we usually are carriers for sickle cell, which means, generally speaking, we are naturally going to be iron deficient or run iron deficient. It's not because we don't eat enough iron, it's because one of the evolutionary traits to protect us from malaria, which requires a certain enzyme and protein found in iron, is to make you iron deficient. Fast forward 3,000 years, 100 years, whatever, we're living in a Western world where we eat a diet that's heavy in animal fat and dairy. If you're O positive, your body isn't going to metabolize animal protein and animal fat and dairy the same way someone who's A or AB. And that's just genetic and evolution. So, understanding that, you need to recognize what foods metabolize in your body better or worse based off of your blood type. So going back to the fact that I was diagnosed with stage 3 kidney disease and it progressed to stage 4 kidney disease. Kidney disease is one of those things when they call it chronic means it's yours for life. You're not getting rid of it, which meant the only progression I'm going to have is what they call end stage renal failure, which is dialysis, kidney transplant, or death. Those are my choices. So I had to make the conscious effort that if I wanted to be here, if I wanted to have some a quality of life, I had to watch. I had to take back the control of the things I could control. And one of the most simplest things you can control, or I could control, is what I put in my mouth. Pause. Right. What I was willing to eat.
Pause.
Right. Big time. Pause. Big time. But in all seriousness, what I was willing to consume on a consistent basis. Because I have kidney disease, stage 4 kidney disease, my body doesn't break down protein efficiently. So what's going to happen is that I'm going to have excess protein in my system, and your body, my body doesn't care if I get the protein from mushrooms or steak. However, animal protein is harder to break down in your body. So I'm going to cause my kidneys to stress even more because they're overworking. So for me, I had to eat plants. I had to eat more of it. And but what I found is that as I progressed through understanding the progression of my kidney disease, it required me to go see nephrologists every 3 to 4 months. Pretty much every 3 to 4 months, I'm a pincushion in the hospital getting blood work. The beauty of getting blood work is that I'm able to track in real time my my labs. I can tell you when I've cheated and drank too much soda because I can see it in my elevated A1Cs. I can tell you when I snuck and had a burger one too many times because my EGFR, which is your creatinine or your protein in your urine, is going to be lower than what it should be. And recognizing, in my case, kidney disease is tied into your hypertension. So often, if you have hypertension, you're going to slowly become, you're going to have some sort of either diabetes or something that's comorbid that lies with your hypertension. Again, it all goes back to what you consume and what you consider your diet. I try to limit myself to 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day. So I have, I recommend anybody. There's an app called the Yuka YUKA app. Download the Yuka app and scan your food in the grocery store, and it will tell you what's in this food in terms of what's harmful based on additives, sodium level, and you'll start to see there's a lot of things in the supermarket that is marketed as healthy food, which is not healthy at all. Again, what I'm saying isn't meant to replicate or replace anything someone's doctor may or may not told you, but also try to let you know that what we understand in America as a healthy diet is not healthy for your body if you're O positive. Again, a Western diet is predicated, it's heavy on animal fat and dairy. I'll give you an example. The average person's ideal of what a healthy breakfast is in the morning is they wake up somewhere between 6 and 10 o'clock in the morning. They're going to have 2 to 3 eggs, slice of ham, or 4 pieces of bacon, maybe some grits, maybe some orange juice, and some toast. Their first meal after sleeping, after breaking their fast, is nothing but dairy and animal sodium or animal fat, right? The next meal will be lunch somewhere between 11 and 2. Oftentimes, it'll be something either a ham and cheese sandwich, burger, some sort of another heavy meal. So, this is again more animal protein in your system. Dinner will be between 4 and 6 in the evening, maybe a little bit later. Steak, baked potatoes, and you might, for the first time in the day, have some broccoli or a salad. So you went a whole day of eating, and maybe one of those meals you had a serving of green stuff, green leafy stuff. First of all, your body needs fiber in order to help the natural processes of ridding itself of waste. If you only ate fiber once a day, I would assume you're probably going to be locked up or backed up, right? Again, these are the things that you pay attention to when you start paying attention to your diet. Most people don't like to talk about the fact, but on average, you should have at least 1 to 2 bowel movements a day. When you wake up in the morning, within 2 hours of waking up, you should be ridding your body of waste. And if you're active during the day, at least one more time in the evening between about 5 and 8 o'clock in the evening. That's just a healthy cycle. We don't talk like that because it's disgusting, it's morbid, whatever, right? But if you understand the natural functions of the body, your body's ridding itself of waste. And I tell people you should probably look in the toilet after you sit on the toilet. And what you're looking for is consistencies, colors, and anything that's abnormal. If one of the first ways you're going to see if you have a sickness in your body or a parasite or some sort of ailment, you're going to see it in your bowels. Now, this doesn't mean because you went somewhere and had a salad somewhere and the lettuce wasn't washed correctly, you have the runs. But if you consistently have loose stool for 3 to 4 days, you should probably talk to somebody about that. If you notice really foul smelling stool, you should probably talk to somebody. And this is where we start saying understanding the functions of your body. Like, for example, like I said, because I eat the way I eat, within 2 hours of waking up in the morning, I got to sit on the toilet. I'm ridding myself of the waste from yesterday, right? And as I get through the day, I'm doing this again. And for me, I noticed they told me in 2020 when I was re-diagnosed with stage 4 kidney disease that within 2 to 3 years I would probably be on dialysis. They actually said within a year I would be on dialysis or I would need a kidney transplant. Shit, I'm still 4 or 5 years stable. So I would say that is a testament that consciously changing your diet will translate into better quality of life. Because I'm gonna tell you, once your body starts to betray you, you realize just how vulnerable you really are when it comes to your health. I could go on and talk all day about health and why I eat. And again, I'm promoting a plant based diet because I see the results for myself. But I would challenge anybody before you look into that, understand your own predispositions, your own genetic makeup. Western doctors aren't going to talk to you about nutrition unless you push nutrition on them. So recognize the food that is considered healthy necessarily isn't healthy for you, especially when you start looking at meats in the grocery store that are like loaded with nitrates and preservatives. In order, you know, you kill an animal you kill an animal a week ago and you send it from slaughterhouse to market. Generally, you got to eat that animal if it's not frozen within 3 or 4 days. And if it can last past 3 or 4 days, you had to embalm it. It's the same as if we died right now. If you don't put yourself in the ground within 4 to 5 days, you're going to start to decay and rot. So understand the concept of that. When you're eating your foods, whatever preservatives are put on your foods, you're now ingesting that. So the issue, and for me, isn't necessarily what the food is, but it's how it metabolizes in my system. What is it preserved? What are they preserving with? When I read a box that says such and such pasta, and I read the back of the box and it's got 20 different ingredients that I have to be a scientist to understand, or I need to be a chemist to understand what all this stuff is. What is that doing to my body? What is that? How is my body designed to break down all these different variations of sugar and sodium and fillers? So again, for me, health is a matter of survival. But what I try to impress upon my children is don't wait till you get the doctor telling you your chronic condition to make a change. Recognizing as we age, we're all going to age and we all have a responsibility to understand the food we put in if you expect to be here.
Right. And so let's let's just hover over a little thing that you said within it. You said a lot, and I hope that the viewers are getting from this one that you have absolutely educated yourself on your body, right? And that's paramount, right? We can sit and we can talk about things that are generalizations across the board, but we there are such things as body types. Obviously, there are such things as blood types. There are different nuances that come with your genetics that only you and maybe people in your immediate family probably should be considering with this, but let's just hover over this thing about how we choose our foods, right? So if we were to look back in 2015, right? If someone would become conscious of the fact that most of the things inside of the grocery store are not considered foods, they're considered food stuffs. One of the books that really opened my eye up to this was a book called Food Stuff. And what it focused on is it said if you go into the average grocery store, the two aisles and the outskirts to the periphery of the grocery store is actually food that 100 years ago people recognized as food. All the aisles in between save the stuff that has to do with cleaning supplies and cat and dog food and things of that nature, um deodorant and other things like that. Aside from that, something that you put into your mouth and you ingest with the thought process of having a good meal. Once you leave the periphery or the perimeter of the grocery store and you move inward, you're no longer putting something that your body naturally recognizes as foods in there, right? So 2015, I became aware of that. It started to become something that was talked about a lot more in social media. I know there's a guy named David Wolf that really he was on the cutting edge talking about how to get out of that psychology where you go into a grocery store and you go buy stuff that essentially is poison. Why I'm starting there is because that's when the Western society and the United States in particular really had to do a facelift. It really had to start coming to grips with the reality that the stuff that's put on these shelves were being sold to consumers, and consumers were not at all aware of all of these big 17 letter, 18, 19 letter words of the stuff that's on the ingredients, right? And so when you start recognizing that things like aspartame start to hit the television where they're like, hey, this needs to be pulled out of certain products, right? For those of us that was like, hey, I mean, I don't want to break it down to a science. I don't want to have to go in there with a list of things on my phone and then put it up against the list of ingredients that's on whatever it is I'm deciding that I'm going to buy, right? That was a little problematic. But the reason why I'm starting there is because 10 years later, as Pro just alluded to, there are apps that all you have to do is just scan the label in its entirety, right? And it already helps to get you to get a very, very novice understanding of what the ingredients are in the thing. So the reason why I'm saying that is because, and I'll first and foremost, full transparency, right? I'm very, very, very knowledgeable about the foods that are in grocery stores, what's good for my body, what's bad for my body, but I still choose to have a reckless diet, right? And I own that, right? I get up every morning and I say, you know what, you're being selfish today because you want to have something that you know for sure your body is not really built to actually break down the proper way, metabolize, and then, push out of your body. And as a result, I look at my body composition and I can tell immediately. For me, I live on that little edge where I'm actually staving off a bad body by the amount of time I exercise and what I do in the weight room. But here's where it absolutely affects me for the diet that I currently have, and I am in the process cleaning up. If I go 3 days without working out, like 3 straight days without working out, all this firmness that I've been working hard for, getting up at 4:45, 5 o'clock in the morning, it started to get a little bit more cushiony, right? And I started to turn. I got this little rule, and I told my daughter and my son, when I turn, I look at my back. If I start seeing a little crease line in my back, that means that what I'm snacking on has outpaced what I'm pushing up and what I'm pulling, right? And I'm adding a little bit of a little bit of humor to it because no one really wants to sit around and get lectured about their diet. But the reason why I'm surfacing this, folks, is because we know that we're not eating the right things. We know that in our 40s and beyond, drinking alcohol on a consistent basis and eating fatty foods, eating high sodium foods, eating foods that are super duper loaded with carbs is going to take its toll on our body. But many of us are just set in our ways, right? So what I do is I play this little game. I play this little cycle game, right? I
I
say,
interject.
hey, yeah, yeah, go ahead.
So I want to say you highlighted something that when I started changing my lifestyle around, a lot of us weren't like when once you recognize the food pyramid that we were taught. If you started primary school in America or an American-based school system in the early '80s, the food pyramid that you learned, because I don't know what these kids learn now. I heard it changed a little bit, but the food pyramid that you learned from like kindergarten, I started kindergarten in '83 or '82 to mid '90s was not built on the ability of what's considered healthy. It was built on the ability to sell corn subsidies. Once you understand that, you realize what we were taught as a healthy diet wasn't taught because it was healthy. It was taught because we had to sell corn and milk subsidies, right? Farmers got kickbacks because there was too much corn they sold or there was too much milk, so we weren't eating it enough as a community. So they said, okay, if we say it's healthy, change the food pyramid around, people will consume more. When you go to the grocery store and buy ice cream, most of us buy, now they changed it. It's called frozen dairy dessert. There's a difference
Mhm.
between frozen dairy dessert and ice cream, but we all use it interchangeably. Hey, yeah, get some ice cream. What are those things called? I don't want to say because I don't want us to get sued because they'll be pissed off. But there's these little ice cream cones. They're not ice cream. They have chocolate on them and caramel and pecan nuts. We all ate them.
Oh, we love them.
Put those things don't even melt in the sun, but it's ice cream. It gets soft and mushy, but it doesn't melt. But it's ice cream, right? There's another one. Uh, when we were younger, we called Kraft Singles cheese, but it's called Kraft Singles for a reason. It's not cheese. Cheese is
Mm.
So again, we eat things that we say, hey, we'll get, you'll say, hey, I want a grilled cheese. You'll go get some cheese. Or what we consider bread in America is not bread. It's like a marshmallow dough made, reformed, baked, and sold and sliced as bread. I remember my grandmother used to make bread. Bread's got like 4 or 5 ingredients. The most simplest bread's got like 4 or 5 ingredients. But if you look at the bread that's in the grocery store, or one more, I'll come off my high horse. Ketchup. Why does ketchup have sugar and high fructose corn syrup in it? And we get so used to eating these versions of food that when you actually get the healthy brand of this, you're like, this is horrible. Like your body is so used to eating the ingredient or the filler or the sweetener. And that's something like we got to consider. Like, all these different sweeteners in our food is not healthy. So I always had to say a lot of us were taught a healthy diet consistent looked a certain way. And then, for example, for like, since we're talking to black people, I'll say black in general, we're quick to throw, once we get a little bit of money, we're quick to throw something on the grill for everything. Somebody have a 2-year-old birthday party, I'm gonna come on over, put something on the grill. Uh, your favorite team goes Super Bowl, hey, won't you come on over, put something on the grill, which is nothing wrong with that. But when you look at the food that we consume around that, again, it's going to be a lot of steaks, a lot of pork chops, a lot of ribs, a lot of animal. Nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to eat. The sauces are going to be loaded with a lot of sodium, a lot of sugar, a lot of different sweeteners, right? Again, we might you put some potato salad, but you don't put mustard and all sorts of things in there. When did you eat a real salad and all that? When did you eat any actual green stuff to help pass all that through your system? And then if you're a drinker, you got to throw in the liquor in that. Again, there's nothing wrong with a little feast every now and then, but I know people who eat like Thanksgiving at least once a month.
Yeah, and it sounds like what you're alluding to is that this is, some of it's trained behavior, some of it is something that, as a child you're exposed to and then you carry on those things called traditions. Part of any culture is the cuisine, right? The things that are consumed on a daily, weekly or monthly basis or yearly basis, right? And so you touched on something that like nailed it on the head for me. My struggle with diet in particular has been because my palate really, really leans towards and really, really is stimulated by sugar and by highly sweetened types of things, right? So it's not that I can't eat greens and I do eat greens, but it took for me to notice something, right? Periodically, and he and I both sharing this, periodically I'll fast, right? And one of the great things about fasting, if you fast long enough, or you do it the right way, it'll reset your palate, right? And it wasn't
Hmm.
until I started paying attention to what I introduced coming down off of the fast on the refeed cycle that I realized, what it is that influences my taste buds, right? So having the salad, if I were to have a salad, and I do love salad, and I'm not talking about the iceberg lettuce because that's not real lettuce. I'm talking about romaine lettuce, leafy green um, vegetable type of salads, right? If someone was to make my dream salad, it would look something like this, right? You have some romaine lettuce or something comparable to that. You put some celery in there, you put some carrots in there, you put some cucumbers in there, but then I throw some cheese on top of that, right? A little bit of cheese on there, depending on how I'm feeling. And in my mind, it's like, hey, you go to the restaurants, you get the croutons. If you croutons, excuse me, you go out to Olive Garden or any other place, they like to put some extra aesthetics on their salad. So I'll throw some croutons on it. Now, here's where it gets tricky. If I were to take that and I would eat a nice balsamic vinaigrette or something like that, I can eat that and have a good time with that and be totally fine with that. But I'm not doubling back and getting this a second a salad under that prescription. But then you take me to another context and then you have a salad and the same thing, but you throw some ranch dressing on there or you throw some creamy whatever dressing on there. Bruh, before I even get all of the greens in the bottom of the bowl, I would find myself back to that salad dressing, tossing a little bit more salad dressing into the equation. And what I realized is that for my mind, it was internalizing that salad for me has to have a certain kind of taste in order for my body to crave it more. But my body's not craving the greenery in there. It's not craving the celery or the cucumbers in there. It's not craving the carrots in there, right? It's craving whatever is in the salad dressing. And whether you go with the Newman's or you go with the high end salad, even Olive Garden has their own salad recipe, excuse me, salad dressing recipe. Skimming it down to a vinaigrette for me caused me to realize the only way I coach myself eating this salad is if I load it up with all that stuff you're saying that is basically sugar and sodium, right? So what I had to do is I had to have a conversation with myself. So, okay, now you're getting to the point where you are getting on the internet. You're starting to do some research on certain things. These things are starting to confirm what you know about your diet and what you need to really move around in your diet. And what I naturally would say is, well, I'll just attack it with moderation. I don't want to take anything off the plate. I'll just have a little less of what it is, right? Thinking that that's going to cure, what I'm consuming in my body. Now, I do feel like there is an argument to be said that if you overconsume, like most Americans, if you go out and you eat outside of your table and you go to a restaurant, most of the time they're going to load you up with a lot of food and it's going to be way more than you should consume in one sitting, right? And so, you can get the little to go box and try and package it up, but most of us would say, okay, well, maybe if I just consume less, if I just scale back how much I'm consuming in one sitting, I'm good to go. Now, I would say that's better than just scarfing down the whole plate and finish it up way past satiation. But the reality is I know in my heart of hearts that just eating less of terrible food is not the answer. But what I would have to do is I would have to bring myself to reset my palate again and then be committed to introducing the stuff like you said that does not taste as exciting in my mouth, right? As the
Ooh, pause.
other stuff, pause, super pause, triple pause. But the
There you
reality
go.
is that I understand that that would be a hard sell for me because then my body doesn't tell me you're full, you're good to go, you had a good meal. My body is like, word, this what we doing now? Okay, well, how many weeks we doing this? We're gonna do this for a week, and then we going back to getting cheeseburgers? Like money. Let me know how long. So my body. So I said to say my body started to recognize that I would go through these cycles and it would allow me to go through these little points and periods of time where I really skim down my diet. But I think that if we're going to talk about diet and we're going to put it on the table for what it is, it starts with how you think about the foods that you eat. Because if you tell yourself that it's bland, or you tell yourself that it's nasty, or you tell yourself it's not as good, this is not as comparable to what I'm used to having, you're already setting yourself up for your body to reject it.
I think, but it also comes down to, and I learned when I had children, um, like when we were younger, there was always some sort of sugar shock cereal on TV, right?
Hmm.
Blasted sugar flakes. I mean, and when you look at this now, you wonder why they said ADHD and certain types of autism are on the ramp. We have meth addicts as kids. I mean, have you seen what's in a Pop Tart? It's from just a level of sugar alone, and you give this to a 6-year-old and expect them to sit their ass still all day? That's criminal. You gave them speed. I learned something some years ago. I said, sugar in its most purest form is about 8 times more addictive than cocaine. So if anybody knows anybody who's struggled with drug addiction, you've never met a person who just did half a line and was like, "I'm good." Woo! So if that sugar, that nose candy can take you to some places, regular white sugar is 8 times more addictive than that. That's gotta tell, and then when you look at food, there's more than just there's like 30 different versions of what sugar is, from corn syrup to high fructose corn syrup to, you said the other one, uh,
Aspartame, yeah.
aspartame to sugar. So there's so many different, like, white sugars, the worst sugars. Like if you just have to have sugar, they recommend you get brown sugar and the crystals. But a lot of people who don't like the taste, because that is a heavier taste. It's almost more of a natural taste. And if you're not used to that flavor, you realize, again, going back to diet, we grew up on unhealthy food. So, and for me, because I've been plant based primarily for the last 5 years, whenever I go somewhere and I'm just hungry, so I have to eat something and I eat something that's unhealthy, like, I feel that my system lets me know within 3 hours, like, what are you doing? I remember a couple years ago before my grandmother passed, I went up to Philadelphia and they were cooking out for the 4th of July. And in Philly, because of the heavy Muslim influence, there's beef ribs all the time. So anybody who eats ribs knows beef ribs are usually thicker, heavier, meatier, and you have to cook them down different so that they become a little bit more. So they're not just like beef jerky, right? I had a little bit of beef ribs on my plate, and I took a couple bites of it, and my stomach, like, pretty much, I've never had my stomach say, "We're not eating this." I had to actually excuse myself and bring all that up. That's probably the last time I threw up, and
Mm,
I couldn't even finish the food because my system was like, "What are you doing?" And again, I'm not advocating for anybody to eat one way or not. I would just say, as you get older, recognize things like gout, things like hypertension, diabetes. These are all things connected to diet. Cancers, those are things connected to what you consume on a regular basis. And there's enough evidence that shows an increase in one thing is a decrease in something else in terms of how you eat and what you eat, right?
mhm. And so, folks, what we're imploring you to do, for those of you that are like, okay, get to the point. You guys have went in a million different directions about this. We spend a lot of time researching, finding out information about things that we care about. At what point are we going to start caring about what it is that we consume on a daily basis, right? And what kind of impact, long-term impact that is, and not speculation, right? It's not if, it's when you consider to eat a westernized diet that was crafted many decades ago, that was done with the intention of selling and actually promoting, uh Keynesian economics, capitalism, and not necessarily looking at what kind of effect it's going to have on the actual general population. Then you're going to get to a point where you have to go into that doctor's office, and where we're going to be going next, talking about preventative care. If by the time you get to the doctor's office and the doctor's telling you you need to cut out certain foods, it's probably, I won't say you're at a point where it's too late, but you're probably at a place where for the rest of your life, you're going to have to learn to live with something, right? And so I'll be the first one to say, hey, I'm Jay Dominique and I'm addicted to sugar, right? So Pro was joking around, said that sugar is akin to any other type of drug. Believe you me, if you have a conversation with ChatGPT, you will find that sugar is on par with all those other kinds of things that will enslave your mind and your body and send you down some of the same paths, right? I myself have had sugar withdrawals before, so I know
Yes.
exactly what that feels like. For individuals that have been down that path and been scared and say, hey, man, I can't stop consuming that because I don't want to deal with all of the stuff that goes along with that. I would say that it's the same psychology as if you are drinking and you have to deal with a hangover, right? Finding a way to get through the hangover does not mean that your body's not being affected and long term affected by alcohol consumption, right? Or drug use. So finding a way to get around eating bad foods is not going to stave off the inevitable. And I know that. And I think that it was great for us to start having this dialogue because the more that we speak these things out and we talk to other people, we know that advice is one of those things that's so easy to give, but it's really, really hard to live in a lot of different spaces in our own life, right? So this is not to come across as being preachy to you all. It's for you to understand that, listen, you got two individuals that have two totally different paths, came together. We have and we share commonalities, but we still are on our own paths and we still have arrived at the same conclusion. By the time you reach your 40s, you better know more about your body than you know about sports. You better know
Oh,
more about your body than you know about music. You better know more about your body than you know about YouTube and all the other IG and all those other things that consume our time. If you don't know these things about your body, unfortunately, they're going to have way more effect on you than social media, right? So that's where we're coming from, which brings me to my second point, right? So we've talked about diet. We've talked about how it's impacted it and affected both of us on the personal level, but then also looking at a general level, the society we live in sets us up now to where we can be more conscious of the things that we are eating. And we should be using this technology that we cling to actually get us on board with recognizing, where this food we're eating, what it's taking us towards. And if we're not really built to deal with what's going to happen because of that, we should probably be trying to make some lifestyle changes before that happens. The second part, and this is near and dear to my heart, right, has to do with what happens to adults and adult males in particular once we get into our mid 30s. How all of a sudden we somehow convinced ourselves that it's cool to become sedentary, right? I've talked to several men across all races, ethnicities, et cetera, about what they do extracurricularly as a form of exercise. And if I were to say for every 10 people that I have a conversation with about what they're doing to kind of make sure that they're still out being active and being fit, unfortunately, maybe four, if I'm lucky, maybe four of the guys that I come across say that they have some things that they do consistently, moving around with the intention to sweat, moving around with the intention to keeping the body active, keeping the blood flowing, and something that's very, very intentional for at least 45 minutes or beyond, right? And so guys like me and Pro, we actually tear ourselves up out of the bed at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning and get into that gym to move some things around, to lift some things, push some things, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, we want to be able to say that we're still in our mid to late 40s moving around with the young guys, and we still want to say that, hey, you know what, this is a key part of what's going to keep us moving around in our 50s and our 60s. But the reality is this is one thing that we do know and one thing we share in common: the moment that you stop moving around, the moment that you make a conscious decision that everything else is going to move around in your life in place of you moving around in your life, you are on a road, you are on a pathway, you are on a stairway to Dr. Central, right? I want to share a little thing that opened my eyes. I was in undergrad, University of Hawaii, had a professor of history that I absolutely adored. His name was Dr. Dan Boylan. God rest his soul. I'm pretty sure he's passed away by now because he was in his mid 60s back in around 2006, 2007, right? And the reason why I'm name dropping him is because this is what opened my eyes, right? I've been around old heads before. I've been around guys that were fit before and never really thought about what that was all about. I just saw them as old head, OGs, whatever you want to call them, and I just gave them deference. I gave them their flowers, but I just moved around. When he decided my senior year that he was going to retire from teaching college courses, I told him, I was like, man, why don't you just hang around one more year? You know, I got one more year, then I graduate. You know, it was a selfish plea. I enjoyed taking his courses. I took all of his courses. He was like well versed in so many different lanes of history, and I was impressed by that. And I've actually modeled my own pathway historianship based on that. But to no avail, he decided he was going to retire my junior year. And after my junior year, he did that. I didn't see him for about 3 or 4 months. And so it was just out of my mind. I'm driving down the highway and I see, and he's an older white guy, all bone white hair, white beard, everything, arm hair, leg hair, all white. He's with a hiking stick moving down the side of the H2. And for those of you that ever have been to Hawaii, you know that there's only three major highways, but they are indeed highways. So I'm driving down the highway, 60, 70 miles an hour, and I see him one day. Didn't really think too much about it. I was like, didn't even recognize him the first time. Headed to school. A couple days later, same thing, see him again. Like, man, I think that's Dr. Boylan right there. You know, just waved it off, got to class, what have you. I seen him on campus maybe about a week or two after that with the same walking stick moving around. And this time I was driving on a regular street, so I was able to pull over, hop out the car. Hey, Dr. Boylan, how you doing? He's like, hey, how you doing? You know, exchange embraces. And I asked him, I said, hey, was that you on the side of the freeway a couple weeks back? He said, oh yeah, for sure. I said, I swear, every time I'm driving to school, I see you up and down the highway. I mean, don't you feel it's unsafe to be walking next to a three-lane highway? He's like, no. He's like, listen, it's way more unsafe what I was preparing to do. And I said, what do you mean? He said, yeah, man, I was working so hard to get ready to retire, man. And I always thought when I retired, I was just going to kick my feet up. I just wasn't going to do too much, nothing. I done gave this teaching profession 40 years of my life, yada, yada, yada. And I'm listening to him. He said, yeah, he said, but the thing that I realized is that I still want to live another 10, 15, 20 years, God willing. I said, well, yeah, of course, man. You look fit. He was like, no, here's what you don't understand. If you stop moving around, you lose it. The moment that you
Yeah.
stop moving, the moment that you stop having a purpose to live, you are one step closer to death. And I may have saw something like that in the movie, bruh. I might have heard something that was roundabout the same way, paraphrasing. But when he said it, because I had such a reverence for him and because I really respected him, it dawned on me. This guy is like, nah, I'm gonna stay out here and I'm gonna stay active because the moment that I stop, I'm up out of here. And when we're younger, we don't think about that. We don't think about our mortality, right? That still plays in the back of my mind. And that's what helps me to put together my 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year plan. I'm always thinking, what can I be doing now so that 5 years from now I could be in the space where I want to be as far as it relates to exercise. And so I done tried so many types of ways to get cardio in, and we can go down a long list if you want to. But I'm just as frustrated as most people with you get bored. This thing gets to be more like a chore. It's not something that really you really see benefits in unless you see weight loss or gain on the scale. You don't really equate cardio to having good health. But the reality is that in order to keep the body, which is a well-oiled machine, which is like an organic computer moving and flowing, in order to keep the blood flowing and the joints loose and all that stuff, you have to move around on a consistent basis. And when you stop moving around, you're literally putting yourself in a position to be getting pushed under the ground. What says you, bro?
Listen, man, I learned something again, like I said, because I'm stage four kidney disease. I have got every level of propaganda on what I should eat, what I shouldn't eat, why I should not eat, why I should exercise, not exercise, so forth. But one thing is universal, is true, is that heart disease is a silent killer. Most men find out they have heart disease when they have the heart attack they don't wake up for. And I didn't realize because, again, I was in the military for 22 years. So the world I came from, the majority of people around me there was a certain level of in shape, if you will. And so it wasn't until I retired and got out into the real world I realized how many people in their 40s are actually like how uncommon it is to see 40-year-olds who are still in shape, right? And I'm telling you, that heart disease is the silent killer. They call it the widowmaker for a reason. And most of us, after a year, after once you get in your 40s, just your body can go like 40 is one of those weird ages, I believe, where that's going to set the tone for what you're going to look like at 60. You're either going to have a shitload of ailments in your early 40s, which means if you make it to 60, you're going to be oxygened up. Uh, what's the little motorcycle in the grocery store?
Yeah.
Or are you going to be men's health man over 50? Like 40 is about where you start to can see your lifestyle choices are going to set the conditions for your next 20 years. Like I look at my kids and what they eat, and they live off DoorDash, and they live off of number fives. And all I can say is, I mean, hey, you're 20. Your body is still fresh and new. You can bounce back. But like you said, you notice if you don't work out for 3 days, you can feel the loss. I was sick for like a week, and I just wasn't feeling too well. I went back in the gym. Like it doesn't take much for for the strength to go from 65 on the dumbbell flies to 45s, right? And they say muscle has memory, so it doesn't take long to get the size back, but you can feel the loss and dip. You can feel the loss, and because I sit down where I work, I can, like, I used to be real skinny, but when I can pinch my lower abs and get a handful of some gugum, just some gluk, 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 I'm like, what? Say what?
Yeah, Lord, you never had no muffin
No,
top when you was younger, man. Welcome to the club, man. My man don't like that little muffin top, man.
no. I,
Hey,
I I had
man.
I had the little back in the day when everybody had their jeans and their boxers, and they would just walk around with their shirt up to show the little Aaliyah, the Tommy label boxers. Yeah, man.
Yeah, we used to call that genuine. You remember back in
Yeah,
battalion when the dude
yeah,
used to couldn't wait to take his shirt off. Yeah, I
yeah,
hear
yeah.
you, man. I hear you. But listen,
Oh,
for any male out here that's listening to us and they're saying, "Man, I ain't got time in my day for that, bro." Listen, I'm calling cap on that. Go
let me
ahead.
say this. Let me say this.
Hmm.
There are some things that you can control, right? You can control what you consume in terms of a diet. You can control how much rest you get, and you can control your exercise. Now, does that mean everybody in 24 hours has 3 hours in this? Like, but you can control that. You can find the time, right? If it means that you have to get up, like I said, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning so I can be at Planet Fitness by 4:30, right? Because I learned if I lie to myself and tell myself I'll just go to the gym when I get off work, that's probably not going to happen at this age.
Mm,
So
yeah.
I can, like I said, I make it a point with my first meal for me because of my health conditions, my chronic conditions. Because, like what Jay said, once a doctor tells you to sit your ass down, you're going to have to sit your ass down. Once you have a condition that is chronic, that means it is yours for life. This is your gift. And if you're one of those people you don't trust modern medicine and you don't whatever, that's your choice. But when the doctor tells you you have a chronic condition, it's only going to be maintained and stabilized in conjunction with modern medicine, right? So I say that to say, for me, my routines are predicated on me eating at a certain time. And my first meal will always be fruit and vegetables, or fruit and granola, right? That's my first
Mhm.
meal out of the gym. So I'm saying that to say that you can control the things you can control. You can control the amount of rest you get. If that means you got to put your phone downstairs at 10 o'clock at night so that it's not by the bed so you can retrain your body to sleep in the room, then you're going to have to do what you got to do. Because when I was younger, I could live off 3 hours of sleep. So what were you going to say about calling Cap?
So one of the major pushbacks for dudes is that they don't have time to put a good weightlifting and cardio regimen into their lifestyle. And I call cap on that because here's the reality. The moment that a doctor tells a patient They tell patient A, hey, you have this thing that's going to be with you for the rest of your life. So you have a decision. You either going to do this or you're going to die. Most of the time, for the ones that aren't fatalistic, they find the time to get that exercise in. So here's what I want to say, which I wish somebody would have told me. Okay, even if lifting weights is not your thing, even if you're not trying to look like you have a summer bod, here's the reality. There is cardio that you could and should be doing that's going to work mostly for the interior and the inside of you that doesn't necessarily show up in how your body composition is, right? And so, for those of you that have no interest in looking like you're in men's health and fitness, dudes that ain't got no interest in going in and pushing weight around, I totally get that. But it's proven for you to have all this knowledge of sports, all this knowledge of your job, all this knowledge about child rearing, anything that matters to you, you go pick up this device and you research it and you become very, very knowledgeable about it. Do the same thing as it relates to your fitness, and you'll find out that the most important thing you want to have going on in your body is good blood circulation. Good blood circulation is the thing that for anybody over 40 years old, if you're a male, you need to be on top of that. So, what doing some sort of cardio will do is it's going to get your body to pump the blood and to reach all this extremities and to move out. It's going to help what's called vascularism, right? It's going to help the blood go up and out to everything and then come back in a good cyclical flow. And that's going to solve a whole lot of stuff inside, right? A whole lot of stuff inside. And so once I realized that, okay, a goal is to figure out how to get a good sweat in, how to do a good sustained, either aerobic, meaning it's something that's sustained consistently for a long period of time, or anaerobic, what is those short fire bursts of things that'll get you gassed out real quick. The reality is that getting that muscle called the heart to push and to work for you in a way that keeps you healthy on the inside means that now when you do something for the first time that gets that heart rate up and your body's not used to pumping that way, now it's not going to result in a heart attack, because that's what a heart attack is. A heart attack is when your chest starts to your heart, excuse me, starts to pump blood out, and somewhere inside your arteries, your capillaries, that stuff is clogged up with stuff, and now it's starting to put a stress. It's starting to pressurize and push up against what are now becoming blockages, and then next thing you know, man, that blood just slows up, and now you're on the ground and you got somebody over the top of you asking you, are you okay? Somebody running around saying, hey, where's the IED at? You call 911. I'm gonna
Yeah.
start doing rescue, breaths and I'm making the light of it because no one really wants to think about laying down there, not being able to know if this is the last breath you're gonna take or not. But the reality is this, gentlemen, if you have convinced yourself that you can't carve out time out of your day to work on your cardio, it is literally going to catch up with you. You can't run from the silent killers or from the things inside your body that are going to break down by deciding you're not going to run. Now, how you choose to get that is the devil in the details. For me, I get so bored with just benign scenery. So for me, getting on the treadmill just doesn't work for me. I've done treadmills, I've done stair steppers, I've taken cycling classes, I've done swimming, I've done going out and doing nature walks, walks along the beach. I've done my happy place has always been basketball. Getting out there in that basketball court, running around was the thing that I do. Now, because anyone that's a certified hooper, you know that basketball is hit or miss. Like you have to go during certain times of the day, you won't get a run. Or if you go at a certain time, no one's going to be in there and you won't get that. Don't let that deter you from throwing some walking into your daily regimen. Just walking 1.5 miles or so every day. Get yourself a Fitbit. Doing 10,000 steps puts you in a space that otherwise you are running the risk every single day of deciding that you're going to do something quick, fast, and get that blood flowing real fast and get that heart pumping real fast. And next thing you know, you're lightheaded and you're on the ground, or you train your body to allow for those extra stresses to train for your blood to be moving at a higher heart rate, and your heart knows how to come back down to a good resting heart rate, right? So all I'm saying is that I know dudes that spend 5 hours playing video games. I know dudes that spend 2, 3 hours going to play basketball once or twice a week if they can fit that in. I know dudes that are at the bar watching a sports game for 3 hours. I know dudes that go and sit in the stands as a fan and watch professional sports for 4, 5, 6, 7 hours in a day. If you can't carve out 1 hour of your day, 5 days a week to actually just get out and just move around, then don't feel bad. Don't feel woe is me. Don't feel like life done dealt you a bad hand if you get to your 50s and now you can't walk around. Now your doctor's saying you walk or die. And you're saying, Doc, man, but I can't walk. It hurts to walk. Don't wait till it gets to the point where it hurts to walk. It hurts to run to
Let me
be
share
dealing with
something.
that. Hit
Let me
me.
share something too. So, fellas, good blood flow is important for a lot of things as you get older, right? So, if I can implore you, if for nothing else, good blood flow is important for a lot of things. And as you get older, testosterone is naturally just going to drop. It just does. That's the way the human body works. So, the way you counteract that is exercise and appropriate diet. But remember, good blood flow is very important for a lot of things. And that's going to tell you conditions of something else to look for. Now, I'm not talking about you have a little bit of ED because you're just not in the mood this week because you got a project at work and you just like, because as you get older, you just like, look, I ain't in that space right now. That's not what I'm talking about. But if you consistently recognize the quality of your soldier isn't full and firm, or you're not having them as frequent as you once did, or it's not working when you need it to work, that is indicative of something else going on from a health vantage point related to blood flow circulation. If for nothing else, take your happy ass to your proctologist, urologist, and find out what's going on. Because that is one of those radar signs in men and that's what I was saying. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can eat that help to clean out your blood vessels, like celery. Beet juice promotes nitric oxide. There's a lot of other things with that go in the diet, but just alone your circulatory system is like one of the if you're going to take care of your car, if you're going to make sure you take care of your car because you're putting effort and energy to make sure your car looking clean, make sure your internal mechanics are looking clean as well.
Facts. Facts. And for y'all, I want a couple more things since we on it, right? Because he's talking about things for blood flow. I mean, there's a whole list of natural things. I mean, honey, cinnamon, right? Fenugreek, something that's found in garlic, right? Those are simple things that you can buy in your grocery store and you can consume. And it doesn't take for you to have to go into a GNC. It doesn't take for you to have to go online and order something out of Amazon. These natural things that promote blood flow. Now, yes, beet juice for some people tastes super nasty. I get it. But for those of us two on this program right now, we both consume beet juice. We know for a fact you get up on an empty stomach, you hit yourself with some beet juice. Hey, check your 30-minute window, fella. Make sure,
Listen,
yeah.
because of my kidney disease, I don't do pre-workout because I can't do that. My body can't break that down, and I'll be in the upper
Hmm.
room. I do a double shot of beet juice and a banana before I go in the gym. I get my potassium jolt as well as my nitric oxide jolt, and beets are are natural sugars. Within 30 minutes, I will be in the gym ready to fucking like, oh yeah, ready. I'm like ultimate warrior in there,
Yeah.
right?
No, that's a fact. That's a fact.
Now, and I get it, but I look at it like this. So I don't drink alcohol anymore. And when I first started eating beets, I thought they were horrible. I still can't eat them, but I can drink the juice. If you can drink liquor, I don't see how you can't iron gut no beet juice. Like if a black man, I'm talking to you. If you can go out there and get some of that Hennessy in you or some of that Crown, but you can't do a shot of beet juice, I don't understand. Because bourbon is horrible and it's horrible for you. And if you can cut that with some Dr. Pepper and be out there on that yak, but you can't double shot beet juice, black man, I'm talking to you. There's a problem.
Message, message, gentlemen. Trust me, and there's a whole host of other things that you can do, man. What you should do, if you're interested, just getting outside of your own envelope, just understanding that you do have the power to figure out how to unlock and how to sustain your own body. It just takes for you to make your mind up, one, that you're going to become educated on it, but then two, then you're going to try and put some things into practice. And if you put something into practice, just understand that that first, second, third thing may not work. What you have to do is tell yourself, I'm just as committed to trying to find this thing for me in the vein of good health as I am in all the other aspects of my life. Because as men, we all have that thing that we covet. We all have that thing that we're over consumed by, right? And what it is it's usually whatever our significant other complains that we do the most. Whatever it is that your lady will tell you real quick, when you say you're going to do X, Y, Z, they get to rolling their eyes like, ah, right? That's the thing that you over consume in your life, right? Cut some part of that out and insert a little bit of exercise is what we're saying. Hey, pro, let's go ahead and flip the script and hit it from a different angle, though, because we've been talking from two middle-aged men that have great health plans and have had some things that have happened to us that has got on our radar that we've chosen to live now, right? We can no longer afford to have our heads in the sand and just act like ain't nothing happening anymore, right? We don't have that luxury, right? So let's talk about the verses, right? Access versus luxury, because that seems to be the thing that gets politicized the most in our country as it relates to healthcare, right? You can have nine, you can have, that's an embellishment. You can have 6 out of 10 whole grown adults that'll argue with you about why the government should or should not be giving out free healthcare, but you ask them to talk to you about what healthcare looks like and what place it has in their life, and you hear crickets. So let's talk about the access side versus luxury. What side you want? You want the access or you want the luxury?
Let's look at it from a luxury standpoint of a luxury.
Hit me.
So I recognize at this age, and I interact with people from all walks of life, that I have been fortunate enough when it comes to having healthcare that since the time I enlisted at 19 years old, I have always had my whole entire adult life, I have had healthcare. And I've had healthcare to the point so much that when I finally retired from the military and had to start paying co-pays, I was pissed off. I was like, wait, what? I was so comfortable with healthcare my whole life that when I looked at the bill of all my children born in military, if not military hospitals paid for through the military insurance, each one of my children, I paid a little bit more because my wife at the time wanted her own room. And so TRICARE doesn't cover your own individual room. So I had to pay the difference. And that still only cost me like 200 something dollars for a 5-day trip for my spouse to have her own room after giving birth. I saw the bill for one of my children who needed oxygen in the incubator. It was $10,000 per oxygen can.
Mm.
I recognize access to healthcare and quality healthcare is a luxury that a lot of people, especially in the Black and brown and poor communities, do not have. We're still one or two generations from that even being a reality for a lot of people. So I understand where it's easy to talk about preventive maintenance, preventive medicine for health. But when you recognize a lot of Black men, sadly, don't even go for checkups. The only time they go to the hospital, they go to urgent care or the emergency room. An emergency room, because of a law passed by Ronald Reagan in '86, says that all emergency room cannot kick you out. They have to provide the bare basic to stabilize you. But then once that's done, they always tell you to follow up with your primary. And if you don't have a primary, you take the emergency room as if it's your doctor. But it wasn't designed for that. That's why you have a lot of people, unfortunately, in our community who will have stage 4 cancer. And like, how the hell you didn't know? Because they never went to an oncologist. So by the time they finally went and talked to somebody about it, the emergency room was like, you need to follow up with your doctor. But if you don't have health care, where are you going to go with that? I've heard the argument now with the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. I don't know what the premiums cost and don't cost because, again, like I said, I'm coming from a standpoint, I've always had access to health care, which is why I would implore Black men That should be, if you don't work somewhere that provides healthcare, then you need to go on the open market and get yourself healthcare. You cannot afford to be 40 something years old still talking about I just go to urgent care when I'm sick, because there's a lot of things that are going on in our bodies at this age that we just don't know. And unless you got medical doctors in your family that you can rely on their advice, you need to let somebody who at least has a better understanding of what's going on than you. Like what you were saying, just like you can research stats of how many games Kobe started in 2001, you can also make yourself available to talk to somebody who might know a little bit more than you.
Bruh, and this is where I do hop on. So strap in, young people, and everyone else alike. This is where I do get up on my high horse, right? When we talk about healthcare and access to healthcare, the reality is that in order to have an opportunity to have full coverage of some sort through your job, you have to be in a full-time status, right? That's the norm in most states, right? If you live in a state where that's different, then belay what I'm going to say next. But here in the state of California, once you make it on a full-time 40-hour plus a week schedule, you're eligible for healthcare being provided through your employer, right? And that comes with its own set of pluses and minuses, right? So I'll start there, right? So just like Pro, 19 years old, raised my right hand, swore in an oath to defend this great country of ours, right, against foreign and domestic. Didn't even think about a healthcare benefit. That wasn't even something that was on my radar at 19 years old. And in most 19-year-olds, that's not the case unless they already have something debilitating, right? Came up under that same comfortability every single day, having access to healthcare. I can decide do I want to call medical and make an appointment or not. I do realize that there's some people that feel like they don't have that available. But here's how I'm gonna start with. I'm gonna start with the individuals that do have healthcare options through your employer, right? I was just talking with my son, right? This is me changing my healthcare plan, getting information about the types of things that are coverable through my insurance. And it's not important to find details, but I'm just showing you individuals that are looking is that this is something that you have to sit down and educate yourself on. You have to sit, you have to look at what it is that you and your employer together can put together that can make it so that you can get preventative care. If you just go in and you say, hey, man, I'm going to just take whatever the standard health care is that my employer is, I'm not going to invest my time in researching into it. I'm not going to go to the actual health fair that most employers will set you up with. If you're not going to take it seriously, then you're going to stay locked in that, okay, I got healthcare access, but I'm not really using it, right? The moment that you start looking at what things like co-pays are, what things are coming out of pocket, what things are going to be paid for as far as screenings, as far as shots, as far as like when you start looking at the nuances of it all, it tends to make us say, hey, you know what? I need to kind of figure out what's going to be the best thing for me because now I need to make my money work for me, right? And so getting a good healthcare plan that's going to be advantageous for you and your family or you if you're solo is paramount. But now I want to switch to the other side, which I hear people that say these things as complaints. Man, I don't work no job where I can get health care, and I don't get into all the politics, man. And so I don't have health care. There's no reason why an able-bodied working person should not have health care. Now, the degree of coverage is going to depend on how much money you can spare, how much out of your budget can go towards that. But I was talking to my son. I live here in the state of California, and I said, okay, hey, you missed your window for changing your health care. So until that next window comes up, which is usually a 1 year cycle, you got to do something, right? Because I got to pull you off of my health care. He said, well, they told me the people that my friends, I said, who's they? First he said they. I said, who's they? He said, my friends. I said, well, are your friends your age? He said, yeah. I said, they're your coworkers? He said, yeah. I said, well, see, you shouldn't be listening to them first and foremost because they're in the same boat you find yourself in. But let's just say that we want to jump into that. Oh, well, I got to wait in between coverages or I can't afford it. No, in the state of California, they have something called Cover California. Way back in the day, it was called Medi-Cal, right? Every state has online information and literature that can get you connected. As long as you have some money to pay into something, you can get medical coverage. Now, will it be the best? Will it be top rate health coverage? Absolutely not. But my point is that there should not be a person that is getting up every day out on their grind, whatever your grind is, with the family to look after and to make sure is insured, that should not have health care, because this is not 1980. And this is, even though this is a political football being kicked around about whether we should get universal health care or XYZ, the reality is that every state has a program in which you can get subsidized health care. And yeah, you might have to really look at very limited resources, but it's better to have some health care than, like what Pro said, to roll up into urgent care or roll up into that emergency room, God forbid, and have to shoulder the load of spending 3 or 4 hours in there and walking out with a lifetime full of indebtedness. Right? It's really that simple. And so when I'm talking with people about healthcare, and the first thing they're talking about is how they can't afford healthcare, I say, how about say you can't afford the level of healthcare that you would want? And if you say that, then I say, well, what do you want? What kind of healthcare do you want? That's when I start to realize that lots of people don't even really have a good thought process about healthcare. And that is where access is the issue for me. Everyone theoretically has access to some sort of healthcare. It's just you got to get out there and you got to chase that like the greatest desire you have. You got to chase that like your magnificent obsession. You got to chase that like your hustle.
I
Dudes, you got
think
to
you also
go ahead.
Sorry, I think you also highlighted something though. It's an education system too. Like I said, I joined the military at 19. My whole adult life, I so when my kids aged out where they could no longer be on my coverage before they aged out, letters came in the mail. I had a conversation with them. I remember talking to my daughter while she was in college. I said, "You're going to age out of my health care once you graduate. So right now, these last 2 years in college, you need to get every physical you think you need, start any whatever treatment you think you need so that you can account for that time when you are gapped finding yourself healthcare." But it's an education thing. I don't remember being talked to growing up about health insurance. I know my mom was a nurse, so I know we went to the doctor through her insurance, but in terms of it being something spoke to us like I spoke to my children. So I think for a lot of us, and like I said, in the black community, we're still a couple generations behind on some of this. And I don't think collectively as a group we're having that conversation, especially in black men, because when you take certain conversations in a barber shop, people will be quick to say, "Nah, man, nah." So what say you on that?
I hear you on that, and I don't want to come across as callous, folks. So pardon me on this. But when I hear adults, and I'm not saying you, but when I hear adults say that they're not privy to a thing, if it's something like, there's jobs right now that have not been created yet, that in 5 years are going to be in the market. And so we can't anticipate every job. Humans have been humans. The big issues in the United States of America politically have been the same for the last 40 years. What causes me to look at people with a side eye when they talk about not having the wherewithal or not having the understanding of a thing, it bothers me because it's the same person that has a miniature computer in their pocket. And they
Mhm.
actually take that miniature computer out and they find whatever it is they want to find. Or they put themselves in an echo chamber in these social media feeds where they listen to what someone on TikTok, someone on YouTube, somebody on whatever it is says, and that's how they get their information. They'll tell you real fast they saw something on TikTok and now they done ran with it. They done incorporated it into their life, and it's the Bible for them. Pardon me, Christians. I don't mean to talk bad about your book, but I see that in every other vein in someone's life. So if someone says they didn't know how to get health care, and I say, have you ever took your phone out and said,
How do I get it?
healthcare, healthcare near me? Is there free healthcare in my county? Are there hospitals in my county that da 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 da? If you've never typed that in, but you'll go to YouTube to figure out how to bedazzle and make something that you gonna wear out to the club, like that bothers me, bro. Like that really bothers me. Like when we was coming up, you're right. Our folks did not have this kind of knowledge to pass on. And so it showed up in us having to leave that envelope, become exposed to something different, and how we break these cycles and how we create generational, diversions from whatever our path was as a child. Is, yeah, we supposed to get this stuff back. But as long as every single person has one of these things in their pocket, and they use it to find out a recipe, or they use it to find out what time the club opens, or they use it to order DoorDash, like it makes me indignant, bro, because I'm like, yeah, you don't have to be an expert in anything, but you're not even going to take the same care and concern that you do with something that's bullshit. I'm
Hey,
talking about, like, bro, I'll open up an
hey,
app right now and I'll do some online betting, bro. Like they make apps, bro. Like you could, like the phone could have an app for it to do all the work for you, and people still be like, oh, I ain't know nothing about that. So,
Your Honor, I got nothing. I was just throwing that out.
yeah,
I was just, you're
yeah.
right.
I guess listen, man.
Hey,
Maybe,
let me put my chain up.
hey, maybe it's just the educator in me, man. Maybe I just am aloof of that, but I see it play out in similar veins, bro. If somebody say they don't know nothing about apples, but I see them researching the hell out of oranges, it's hard for me to have a conversation with them where they gonna sell me on why they didn't know nothing about apples.
So could we say then, like I was saying, like that's just one of those going back to what the original conversation we had about diet. Collectively, we don't have that conversation at the micro level in
Mm,
education when we grow up in our homes.
yeah.
So not saying we because I did, you did, but the collective we still is a couple generations behind on that. Because remember, healthcare and proper diet and healthy or whatever we consider a diet, we're all considered still luxuries. That's why I give you an example. With black males, once we get our home, we get a grill, and we feel that a measure of our success is how many times we can grill out. Even though historically speaking, when you look at Europe of the 13, 1400s, royalty always died of uh, hypertension, diabetes, strokes. You know why? Because they ate the way they ate. The Western diet is predicated on royalty, you know, or
Mm,
European royalty.
right.
So black men now get himself a good job. He feels okay. Get myself a Traeger grill, and I need to grill out every weekend, plus beer and liquor. But nowhere in the conversation did we talk about healthcare.
And I'll give you that. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. But this is one of those moments where I think that two things can be correct at the same time. Because I'm a walking contradiction in that way. I'm very well versed on things, health and fitness, and I still eat like crap. But the thing is that I understand where I'm at with it, right?
Do you do you,
And,
I, do you
and
think some people really still in 2025 don't even recognize? I mean, they know they have a problem, but they don't really recognize the severity or how much control they actually have in addressing this.
I think that there's still a social norm to where people live by those old adages you and I are talking about. People can point back to their parents and in some cases grandparents that aren't really on the technological wave, and how they have to sit down with the computer and show them how to do simple computer functions, right? And you give them a pass, you'd be like, oh, you know what? They're not digital natives. They live most of their life where there wasn't this contraption called the computer. So you give them grace, you give them a pass. But simultaneously, you're moving around on the computer with a certain level of understanding because you feel that that's the only way you can stay current and the way you can stay plugged into the world around you. So if the world around you is still in that state where people are not taking these things to heart, but there is a lot of literature, there is a lot of things that they have to now come out and say. What's that thing called red dye number 9? There's all these little chemicals that they have to come to the podium and say, hey, you know what? We are now going to be taking this out of our products because blah blah blah. And there's that same person consuming that to be like, oh well, in Europe they got rid of that 15 years ago because it was killing people. They already knew about that. And I'm looking like, bruh, you can sit here and quote me something you saw from a Facebook post 10 years ago, but you don't got the wherewithal to be like, man, let me just cross check what I got going on my side, especially if you having issues with it, right? If someone was walking around feeling like they had the best clean bill of health and there's things going on internally that just hit them, I could recognize that. But we all hurting with something, man. We all got them joints that's a little more painful now. We got that trick knee. We got that little thing that we can't lay on the left side too long or our arms start going to sleep. We all got these indicators in your 40s, bro. That hey,
Hey,
my
that's
body
like
just ain't quite it ain't just, look,
that's
man, we trying to fire it at all cylinders, but that V8 ain't just quite kicking like it used to kick, bro.
that's
What
that
I'm
engine
saying is
light.
when you yeah,
That's your
so that's what I'm saying. So when we get there, this is where my lament comes. When we get there, what do you do with that? Because if you one of those people that I like to call skinny fat, which you could eat anything that you want to eat your whole life, man. You never really gain no weight. And if you did, you got just a little pooch at the bottom, but you'd be like, oh my God, I'm looking at my waist, I'm getting a little fat. All that bullshit. And speaking from a previous fat kid that loved cake, man, I used to get so annoyed with seeing people like you walking around, man, be like, oh my God, look at my arm, I think I'm getting fat. Right. And meanwhile, I ain't got a whole neck. I ain't got a whole neck to look at. I got to pull it down to look at my neck. What I'm
uh,
saying is that for someone that outside, eyeball test looks like they're in good enough health to where they ain't got to worry about the internal, I get that. But most of the people in America have something going on, have some ailments, have some things that are literally yelling at the top of its lungs to us, like, hey, something just ain't quite right. But
hey
you'll
man,
go get on there and do online betting and play football. You'll do watch football.
hey,
You'll play video
monitor,
games.
hey, you monitor your fantasy league. I be at work
Yeah,
sometimes. I step outside the building because I can't get a signal.
yeah.
Like,
And like dudes be sweating about whether they started the person in fantasy football league, but their leg is tingling for 4 days and they don't want to they don't even want to type in they don't even want to type in, hey Siri. What's wrong if my knee if my knee is knocking? If I'm
hey
sitting
man,
still and I'm hearing, you
hey,
know what I'm saying?
hey man, have you ever stood up too fast and your check engine light came on and you was like, "Oh shit, is this how I go?" Like
Oh
you happen to be sitting
man,
in a room on a couch watching TV and something tightens up and you be like, "Oh God, is this it? Is this how I'm going?" You,
Fred Sanford. Elizabeth.
hey man,
Elizabeth. Yeah, hell yeah.
one time I stood up too fast, and I don't know. I thought every one of my check engine lights must have came on. I was like, "Oh shit, is this how I go? This is it?"
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
had to.
Man, the whole dash lit up. You know what? Right. No, bro, I think that that's the norm. So that's what I'm saying. Like, listen, the luxury for me is being able to get a healthcare package in which, man, you have all the bells and whistles and you have the ability to have the doctor you want. You can be out of network, you can go to anywhere around the world and, pull out your little card and be like, hey, they're gonna go ahead and service you. That's the luxury part. The access part is a lot like we have more access to healthcare now in this country than ever before. And like I said, the political football is does that stay or do they pull it back and make America sick again? Right? We can figure that part
Uh,
out in another segment. But my point is that when I hear people that say that in yesteryears past they weren't really privy to this, but now you have something that can actually quell your suspicions. You think, wait a minute, man, the little what's that called? The little light on the dash that got the little apostrophe. I mean, that's the apostrophe. The exclamation mark comes on. Bam, and you'd be like, oh, let me get my little manual out, flip to it real quick, and see what this is. Oh man, it's the tire pressure, right? We all have that. Once you reach your 40s, will something will go off on you here and there, and if you choose to ignore it, that's on you. But we all feel like health is wealth, right? And we're coming to this realization that it is up to us to contribute to our own health and well-being. It's not for the government to tell us. It's not for the people that are trying to sell us a product to tell us. But by the way, now they got to tell us how they're impacting our health. So why not take that as a sign to say, well, let me just do my part on my side? What you say?
I say, man, I read this thing years ago on like one of the pamphlets I got because that's all I do. Every 3, 4 months, I'm in nephrology, and it said if you don't make time for your wellness, you will make time for your illness.
Facts.
I thought that was some hot shit. Like when I heard that, I mean, and it was just like so. Going back to what you said about people who say they don't have the time, I can't tell you what your time looks like because we only get 24 hours a day, all of us. But if you don't make time for wellness, you will and that's not one of those negotiables. No, you will have to make time for your illness. So do with that what you will.
Yeah, facts, bro. I mean, we see that. Like, so again,
And I remember having a conversation in the barbershop with this dude, and he was saying like he was like in his 40s. So he like so I get it if you're somebody who's 75 and you want to smoke what you want, drink what you want, you're like, look, man, I had a great run. I'm trying to get up out of here anyway. Man, listen, but when you talking about 40 and 50, like I still want to see my grands, right? I still want to have while I'm on this side of my life still, I still want to for the birthdays I have left. I want to still be able to get up and do stuff. That's one of the scariest things about knowing that one day I probably will have dialysis. That shit scares the shit out of me is because once you're on dialysis until you get a transplant or die, that's an every other day thing. So you can't really do nothing because you have to go to dialysis.
yeah,
And that's one of the fears of me is like, what is that loss of control over my body going to look like? The loss of agency. So I try to stress to people you can either find a time now or the time gonna find you. And like I said, I go to nephrology and it's depressing because I'm 48, 47, and I come in there and I remember my doctor at my last appointment said, you're probably the healthiest stage 4 person I'm gonna see all day. Because I come in there with my 1.5 liter of water. We go over the things. I have certain genetic markers that show that I'm stage 4, but that's it. I'll see other people in there with the rotor scooters, the motherfuckers with the oxygen, man. People
oh,
they breathe so loud, bro. It's like they got awake apnea. Like I heard this lady sit next to me sound like she was purring, bro. That's how loud she was breathing.
oh man, bless her heart, bro. I mean, we don't want to
Yeah.
make fun of that. I was about to get a Darth Vader joke, man, but
Hey, listen. No, it sound
I'm
like
a,
that, and
yeah,
because well, I'll say it because I'm part of that community. I can laugh at them, but recognizing we're all gonna if you live long enough, we all gonna be 65, 66, 70. But how do you want to be at 70? That's what I want to
hmm
say. Do you want to be the person like so I instinctively 90% of the time I will take the stairs in the building. If I gotta go up to the fourth floor, I'm taking the steps. Like those little things that you can do for you, right?
hmm
I'm taking the
yeah,
steps. I'm going to park at the park, and I mean I got handicap plates on my car, but I'm gonna park across the parking lot and walk into the building.
yeah.
It's the little things that you can do to say, okay, let me get my steps in. So
Yeah, and here's why they're little things. It's because these are the things that go low, low, low frequency in our minds and hearts we don't even really think about until we no longer can do those things or till those things are taken from us, right? Anyone that engages in weightlifting understands that lifting weights is a ticking time bomb. You're doing the same rote memory movements over and over and over again. And at some point, you're either A, going to just lose that focus and you're going to do something that what we call is not with strict form, or just the elasticity of the body. You put 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 reps or something, you're going to have some effects towards that, right? And so where I'm going with is this. Anyone that's ever been in the weight room has had to go in the weight room and had to work around the injury if you still want to stay active. You got that little elbow thing, you got the wrist thing, your shoulder, one of your knees, your ankle, your foot.
let me
One of
say,
them things is gonna happen. Go ahead.
I remember myself looking at you and all you other muscle motherfuckers. I said myself, I'm like, I don't know because I've always been skinny. I don't know in my mind what I thought I would look like if I could even get to be 240. I don't even know. Like the heaviest I ever been was 220. I'm about 210 now, right? The heaviest I ever been was 220, and 220 on me didn't sit like that. 220 on me set like
I knew you was going to that, bro.
what, man? It did. Like you just sit on the couch and you be snoring, but you be awake. You be like,
Bro, man, somebody named Precious is cussing you out right now, bro.
I'm just saying, 220 on me. I was sitting on the couch snoring, and my wife was like, "You sleep?" I was like, "Huh?" Like, no. So I was wide awoke, bro. So, but something in me saw y'all, and I was like, I'm gonna try to get like him and Dante. I want to win a push up contest for once in
You
my
want to do all
life.
the push-ups? You want to do all the
All of them,
push-ups?
all of them. Man,
Hmm.
I started doing like two a days. I think I did about 2 weeks of solid 4 days a week. Rest on Wednesday, go in the morning, and when I come home, do 30 minutes. Like, you know what I mean? Man, by the
Yeah.
second week, I couldn't even feel my hand. Like it was tingling down here. Like my shoulder was like, he was like, lift the weights if you want to. You gonna be.
Hey,
I was sitting around like
hey,
I was like how Christopher Reeve was when he was in the chair like this. What man?
bro, don't do not get us canceled on this thing podcast, bro. You leave Christopher Reeves alone, bro.
I'm just saying I
Hey,
couldn't turn my head because it was like if I
I
did,
know
I,
he's
I
he's national treasure, bro. He's the very first Superman we ever had, bro. We cannot be making jokes about Christopher Reeves, bro.
okay. Well, whatever I had, I could like if I
Yeah,
turned my head too much,
yeah,
my right arm, and the only thing that helped because I'm left-handed. That's why it was cool, so I could still do things. But like my right arm was like I had a stroke, man. That motherfucker just laid there, and I had to realize I just if I was supposed to be 240, I would have been 240.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean it happens to the best of us. But what I'm saying is if you're in that vein of lifting weights, you're going to injure something, and then you're going to realize for the first time how interconnected every part of your
Yeah,
body
man.
is. The moment that something happens to you, one, something else has to overcompensate at that point. But then you start realizing if you hurt something, everything becomes uncomfortable. You hurt your shoulder, you can't sit up right, you can't lean right, you can't lay down right. Lord forbid you hurt your back. I had a lower back injury, man, about 6 years ago, and I still feel the effects of it in my mind. My body has recovered from it, and it does tend to fatigue the part where I had an injury fatigues faster than the other side that doesn't have that. But there's ways around it. But it wasn't until I hurt my back that first time that I realized just how much I was taking for granted. Like for me to be a middle-aged, strong, buff, guy, laying on my side, having to put my slacks on, laying on the bed, having to have my baby girl at that point in time come and tie my shoes, and then having to slide out of the bed like Lurch,
No,
right?
stop. You're gonna get
Like,
canceled because we don't want to
hey,
make fun of
no,
Lurch.
no,
No.
no. Lurch is a fictitious character that was in a show.
I
There's,
thought you,
there's,
I thought
there's
you was
no.
talking about the dude, the senator from Pennsylvania. My bad.
Oh no, 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 no. I'm talking about Lurch from either the Adams Family or
You
whatever the other
right.
show
The
was.
dude
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Okay.
that dude. I'm talking about when your back lock up, everything is stiff. Like you can't even just move around. There was some
Bro,
kids that,
I
yeah.
couldn't even tie my hair up because I have to raise up. I had to like I don't want to say who I was like, but I was sitting there like this, okay? And I had to like turn
Oh,
this way in order to
oh no, heaven forbid you can't put your ponytail in. Oh my God, bruh. I'm talking about actually just being able to just, hey, get into your car, bro. You talking about putting up a messy bun, bro? I'm talking about, I'm talking about not even being able to put your pants on. You talking about you to get a chance to put a low bun on, bro? Come on, man.
I'm empathizing with you that like
Yeah,
but I realized my
I
body
know.
was like, hey, you wasn't 240, you're not gonna get to be 240.
Yeah.
You
No, I get you, man. I'm being facetious with you, man. We go
look,
way back, man.
look,
No, and I get that. So
hey, my 16-inch pythons is what I was supposed to have. Okay, like, what are you gonna do when these 16 inches run wild on you?
that dude just passed away a couple of weeks ago, man.
No,
I'm just, saying-
he had
I'm just,
24s.
I'm just saying that dude, that dude just passed away about a month and a half ago, bro. It might be too soon, but I get what you're saying. Moving right along. No,
I could
no,
see if
but
I
no,
tore my shirt off and was like, "Oh, brother,"
no,
but
bro. Everybody was a Hulkamaniac, man. So
Mike,
listen, I'm just messing with you on that. I
I
know,
grew
I
up in
hear you.
I grew up in a time of the world where we didn't know how he felt about his daughter boyfriend, so we was just all like pro stars, and
Yeah.
I'm a real American. Like
Oh yeah, man. Hey, everybody, man, everybody wanted this. Hey, that's what happened whenever that hand-me-down shirt that you had to wear from your cousin or your brother got too many holes in it. You
You
couldn't
just
wait for it to get
you
out of
couldn't.
service.
I actually
You'd
got
be
my
like,
ass. I actually got my ass whipped for tearing T-shirts up. That was good because I was like, because it's like a feeling
hey,
you get when it.
hey, that or your grandma's old towels. Hey, that I seen his last days, man. You start seeing a little rip, you'd be like,
Raw, raw.
yeah, yeah, everybody had that in them. Yeah. Okay, so listen, let's move on to our last topic that kind of bring this all full circle. We've kind of hinted about it a little bit, right? I've been tongue in cheek talking about education, man. You've been giving us a whole wealth of education just from your own experience, and then just the fact that you are very, very much interested in all things health and fitness. So you probe and you do a lot of research and all that good stuff. But we haven't really talked about something that also affects us out the gate, which is our genetics, right? Which is the family that we're born into, which are the predispositions to have certain things that we're born into. And those things matter. That's the thing that separates us from only being able to talk in the macro, right? So let's get to the micro because both of us have our own unique health scare and health journey that we've been on in our middle age. And so let's talk a little bit about how genetics play into whether or not you're going to be going to see doctor, or whether it's the witch doctor or the MD doctor.
So I think one of the things that's still lacking in the black community, and maybe poor, but I'm talking to black men right now, is that we don't really understand past two generations back, right? And a lot of times, because healthcare was a luxury for older generations, everyone doesn't know to what extent they had something. We can say for certain our big mama, our big daddy died of a heart attack at 65. We don't recognize, well, what were the precursors to that heart attack? And we just don't know. And I'll use my own example. So I was diagnosed with stage 3 kidney disease in 2016, right? And one of the telltale signs that made them finally isolated, because again, I didn't present like anything else was wrong with me. I was at the time 36, 37, 6'2", 205, Army Special Operations. I'm still in really great shape looking. Um, but my blood pressure was through the roof. And so I remember the doctors kept asking me for about the period of 2 weeks about genetic predispositions. I didn't have any of them. I later learned after I got my diagnosis from talking to my father and my aunt, because I wind up asking them, like, does anybody in this family have this, this, and this? And then my dad had told me, yeah, me and all my siblings were diagnosed in our 20s with hypertension. Excuse me? My grandfather had other issues and my grandmother as well. So, which pissed me off because I remember distinctively having physicals in my 20s where the doctors were like, your blood pressure is a little high. Again, who knew what that meant? Like I said, when I was in my early 20s, I lived off McDonald's, Del Taco, and Taco Bell, and any other unhealthy fast food joint right outside the main gate, right? So
Hmm.
it could have been attributed to that. But had I known that, wait a minute, no, my dad and all his siblings have been on blood pressure medications since they were in their 20s. I could have brought that to my doctor and they could have told me, hey, you need to watch this, like I tell my kids, right?
Hmm.
And so that's just at my level. But then I also recognize, sadly, a lot of us don't really know our parents because it's just not talked about in our house. And then
Right.
for those of us who don't know our fathers or know our mothers, you don't really know outside of, unless you had a parent that was like, my mother died. I'm not saying my mother, but I know people whose mothers died of breast cancer at 48. Then they know to tell their daughters, you need to watch this because your grandma. And then even if
Hmm.
you do know your parents' medical history, you're doing really good if you know your grandparents. But anything past our grandparents, most of us, you may not even
Hmm.
know this person's name. This might have just
Yeah.
been a photo on somebody's family Bible you remember vaguely in the early 80s. So that's really important when you start trying to get your genetic scope, when you get to go in here and talk to these doctors. Because if you go to the doctor saying you have a headache and you're like in your 40s, you look seemingly healthy, they're not going to check you for certain things. But if you go in there and say, hey, listen, my mother had a stroke at 30 years old, my father suffered from whatever, whatever, then that helps them itemize and look into your brain different and say, okay, we're going to give you a couple scans to check what you have and don't have. But if you're going in there saying, hey, man, the best I know is that my mother lived to be 65, my dad lived to be 72, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But you don't know what they were dealing with. That's actually detrimental to a lot of us. I remember when the
And
black I remember when the Black Panther died, or Chadwick Boseman died of prostate cancer, and I told my doctor, "Hey, listen, I'd like to have a colonoscopy." And my doctor's words to me were like, "You're not old enough yet, and unless you have like a father or a brother who has it." I was like, "Wait a minute, a seemingly healthy actor from Black Panther just died, and either he's older than me by a couple months, or I'm older than him by a couple months. But pretty much, he's my age. What are we waiting for?" Then you learn that for black males, it's recommended we get our colonoscopy at 40 because we have a highly genetic predisposition because of other things. And what do you call it? Colon cancer screening. I'm actually due
yeah,
for my 5 year this year. But I had to advocate for myself to my doctor because my doctor was like, no, you're fine. You're not of age. You don't have to worry about it. And I was like, this motherfucker. And I think I had talked to you earlier that day, or not earlier that day, around that time. You said you either getting it or you were online to get it. And I was like, you know what? I think I need to get one of those. So
yeah,
because we're able to talk to each other, I went to the barbershop trying to share that with young brothers. Man, you know what I mean? Black dudes push back on that.
yeah, man,
Not
all of them.
not because of they were scared they might find something, but the notion of somebody having to look look up their cheeks. And I was like, you're not. I said the hardest part about having a colonoscopy is that nasty shit you got to drink before.
Yeah,
But they were focused on the back. I was like, the doctor ain't in there like having his Diddy way with you. All right. I mean, that's
yeah.
fuck. But
It's an uncomfortable thing for all parties involved. You know what I'm saying? And so, man, here's where we run a parallel, right? Because you've already shared, the thing that you're battling, and this is the perfect opportunity for me to table mine, right? So what made me so much more consciously aware of having to take account what I've done to my body and what my body has already been predisposed to, encounter is, I currently have what, my doctor calls chronic dehydration, right? I have that, which is self-inflicted. That's not something that people, get a lot of, and I'll share exactly how I got that. But then also this big H word, hypertension, right? So this is a
I
something that
have
I think that
that
a
too.
lot of people that affects a lot of people, right? So for me, I'll start with the chronic dehydration, right? I've grown up an athlete. One of the things that kept me a pass in the environments and the neighborhoods that I grew up in, and I moved around a lot and was in a lot of circles, right, is the fact that I was a athlete, right? So if you're an athlete, man, most of the time the people that are doing bad will look at you and be like, you know what, let's just keep everything off limits for this dude right here, man. Let's just let this person focus on that. You never know. They might go to the league, they might go to college, they might be able to do something to get about this hellhole we call the hood. And so because I used to walk around with a basketball or a tennis ball or even a little small little racket ball just dribbling, they always see me on the court, always in sports. I didn't have to necessarily navigate through the world of gangsterism the way that other people did, right? But being in that vein, you're exposed to whatever you're exposed to. When I went to the military and started playing basketball on the base team level and playing against JUCOs and this, that, and the third, I was introduced to you get this little edge, right? So we would take now what they call pre-workouts, right? Back then
Mm,
they weren't given to us in the term pre-workout. What it was, the gentleman was like, "Hey man, go ahead and get you some water, put these two capsules of Rip Fuel into
mm.
there, take it, excuse me, tip off it's in like 30 minutes. I guarantee you're gonna be full of energy." And I was 19, 20, 21, 22 already had energy, but it did give me that noticeable edge. And like you referenced earlier, the things that we had to worry about when we consumed that is that we would get dehydrated. So we would always have the bananas, right? And we would have the Gatorade. But what I did to my body is I got into that culture of using pre-workouts and using stimulants and using caffeine in those veins, and then going out and sweating for 2, 3, 4 hours playing basketball, playing flag football, XYZ, totally depleting my water table, totally depleting all of my electrolytes, and then come back and then sometimes hop into a hot bath of Epsom salt and further allow myself to sweat thinking, hey, I'm gonna keep my summer body. You know what I'm saying? I done went hoop 3, 4 hours. Now I'm in this little tool, this little tub. I'm gonna get out. But what I did is I constantly kept my body in a state of dehydration. This is before I got in that whole regimen of drinking a gallon of water a day. And so once my body got to a certain point, there's no reversing. So what I have now is like if I sweat too much, like you said, you can feel it if you eat something out of whack. Within 2 or 3 hours, your body will tell you, "Hey, man, what you doing this bullshit inside of me?" Right, and then it starts to do whatever damage control. I know when I reach that threshold of dehydration, the moment that my body's like, it just clicks over. And so what I have to do is I have to stay in front of that. I have to make sure I have electrolytes and that I hydrate prior to doing anything that's going to cause sweat. And on top of that, since I've been a little kid, it doesn't matter what I did. I was what you call a sweater, right? So my doctor told me that I had to give up pre-workouts. I had to give up things that had caffeine in it, and I was happy too. I had a health scare. I got done playing basketball a couple hours, went home, got into a hot shower, was in the shower, and I could feel myself getting. I turned my head, and you know how you get those little slivers that be moving around, and you see a little gray things. I said, hey, you know what? Let me go ahead. I got me a nice little Gatorade in there already chilling. Let me grab the Gatorade and I'm gonna just go ahead and I'm gonna just chill on the bed with the fan on me for about 2, 3 minutes. I felt like I could just catch it, right? I had already reached that threshold, but it's just something that I would do,
Man,
and I
you
would
remember
work my
Beavis
way
and
out of it.
Butthead when Beavis would start going crazy? Them little
Yeah,
dots, you
you
started
see 'em?
getting up.
Yeah, yeah. So I saw those. So I go to the bed, bro, and I never forget this, bro. I went by the time I got into the room, I had to make a business decision. I was like, man, you
Oh,
probably got a good 5, 6 steps left in you. So well, go ahead and just lay on the bed, right?
you hit your
So I
control
go,
alt delete. It's just
yeah,
pew.
bro. I went and I climbed it because my bed it has a step to go up. I just stepped up the step and I got into the bed. The best thing that I did, the thing that saved my life, bro, is when I got onto the bed on my chest, I turned my head to the side. The moment that I hit the bed, I kid you not, almost every muscle in my body locked up on me, right? All at once, everything locked up. So for those of y'all that had the chronic little hamstring cramps or the calf cramps or the hand cramps, the foot cramps, imagine all that stuff happening at the same time. I immediately did what everyone does when you find yourself way out there in the deep end. Oh God, please. I start praying to God. I'm like, please, because I could not
He was
move
like,
my
he
body.
was like, this is
All
it, this is it.
yeah, all I could do was, bro, I could literally just feel the air going in and out of my nostrils as they flared. Like the only thing I had control of is how much air went in and out of my nostrils, bro. If I would have went and laid with my head face down on the bed, I would have suffocated, bro. If I would have had a pillow on my bed, my good thing my pillows was off to the side because I had laid the opposite way to watch the TV a couple days before that. All I'm saying that to say is that my body locked up and I realized that this is not normal. This is not a conversation you can have with somebody else and they be like, "Oh yeah, every single thing in my body locked up." And it could have been 45 seconds, but it felt like 5 minutes to me, right? So when I went and talked to my doctor about it, of course we start trying to troubleshoot it, this, and that. We get to the bottom of it. I had a pre-workout that I had been taking, and I had been good with cycling off of them every 6 or 7 weeks, but for whatever reason, and this is how I know it because I purchased them. I went through 2.5 cans, having a full scoop each day, and I'm doing overtraining, so I'm working out 7 days a week. There's no off day. So for a period of 2 full months and a half a month, I'm consuming this terrible pre-workout every single day, taking myself into a dehydration, and my body just had enough. My body was just like, "Oh, this is what you want to do? Okay, this
Control alt delete. Doo
yeah,
doo 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 doo.
right."
Your Windows sound
Yeah.
came on.
Yeah, yeah. Everything had to reboot, man. And I was scared. I told everybody that was close to me about this experience. I was like, people be talking about getting attacked by sharks, all kind of other preventable stuff. Like this is a preventable thing, but like I literally almost lost my life just because I wasn't paying attention to what it is I was putting in my body and I wasn't listening to the signs. I was like, oh, I get cramps all the time. Or I just eat a few more bananas. Like I'm doing this little self troubleshooting, not even really realizing that it's a ticking time bomb. And so this is something I gotta live with for the rest of my life, bro. Like right now, we sitting here having a great conversation, man. But if I was to pan off to the side, you see the little fan on because I got my little sports jacket on, so I don't want to be here perspiring and looking all crazy. So I be having to keep cool, right? And it's not like I have an aversion to sweating, but I'm saying I do understand that for me, once I start sweating, I gotta watch out how much I'm sweating out versus how much fluids I'm putting back in my body, or my body will tell me it'd be like, hey, you know what? Something ain't right. And
It's
so
funny.
I gotta live with that the rest of my life. There's no, it's not gonna go back. I can't drink enough water to go back to where my body was like that. From here on out, my body just has a tendency to dehydrate faster than others, and I choose to still get out and be active. So now I'm in my classroom. Students know me for that. They're to the point where I'm the water man. I used to buy one jug, but now I buy two jugs. One for myself each day. One milk carton, gallon of water, and I get an extra one because now they be like, "Hey, Mr. Moji, can I get some of your water?" So I always give water, but that's something I got to live with for the rest of my life. And I'm the one that it seems, it seems a little bit awkward sometimes, and sometimes it's embarrassing. But if cats is going out to do something, we're gonna be out in the sun all the time. I don't got to put on sunscreen. I ain't got to put a hat on. I ain't got to do all that stuff. But rest assured, I got me the flask of water. I'm like, hey, if I'm gonna be out to where there's a risk of we gonna be out here sweating, let me just go ahead and get my water together.
Let me tell you, man, like I was telling you, we was talking about telltale signs. Like, because I go to the nephrologist every 3 to 4 months, I can track my numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I went somewhere and I just wanted a burger, and I was like, I've learned, like, if my body's craving for a burger or something, it's not a burger, but I'm probably iron deficient or I'm something else deficient, right? That's my body's way of saying you need to eat this more. Because now that I'm primarily plant based, it's very important that I get the proper balance of minerals, nutrition, amino acids, so on and so forth, right? So let's say I get a burger and I eat it for the next 2 days, I can taste the uric in my body. The best way I can put that is like it's almost like an ammonia taste. And that's my body. Like that's pretty much it's the poison because my kidneys can't process it the way somebody else's would. So it
Yeah.
gets it leaches into my blood.
Yeah.
So those are those kind of telltale things. Like I know now when something ain't right, and I
Yeah.
can tell. And but going back 20, 30 years, I wish I would have had my genetic markers or known my family history because I have hypertension as well, but being diagnosed with hypertension in my 20s would have probably and I'd say, would I have done something different? I like to say I would have, but who knows? But it wouldn't have been a shock to me in my 30s when I'm dealing with when I'm in active renal failure, as they say, and I'm sitting here wondering like what's going on here. They sent me, I had to have a referral, I had to have a biopsy on my kidneys, and when that happens, they start talking to you like you might have the C word. And then now I'm looking at
Yeah.
it like I got kids, and I'm all like, well, fuck it. You know what? If I got to go out, I got to go out this way, and that's
Yeah.
a real tough guy ass talk till you realize you have kids and you're like, okay, I'm not going to be here. I share something with you, and this is a God bless the dead moment. I might have shared it to you. There was a girl we knew growing up back in Wanimi. Used to make fun of her because her back pockets were fighting.
Mm.
Polo messed with her. I sort of messed with her. I always say it would have been real weird if I had a kid with her because she died of kidney disease, bro.
I didn't even know that, bro.
Right? Yeah, she died
Oh.
in like '06, '07 time frame of kidney disease.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's man, that's news to me, man. Yeah, you're right, man. We used to make little, jokes. We young and definitely insensitive and dumbasses, man. But,
But
but,
but
but
but but
for my
but
my greatest memories of her, she was a good young lady, man.
but the running joke that I have, because my wife knows her, knows I used to mess with her. Like, had her and I had a baby, that baby would have been fucked up, bro.
Wow, that
No, I mean,
yikes. All right, yikes. I might get what you're saying, bro. And so let's just add a little bit more texture before we get out of here, right? I cannot say that I wasn't aware that I had hypertension. I just similar to you, I was completely disconnected from it, right? I came into the military and all through my military documentation it says, hypertension, and I didn't put any stock into it primarily because the individuals that communicated that to me didn't get me to see that that was something that I needed to really have on radar. And maybe yes, because I'm 19, 20, 21 years old. Okay, that's just something that, you know, is often to the distant future to have to worry about. But it showed up in my mid 30s when I became a lot more health conscious and more, aware of making sure I do preventative of care, and so that I don't have to walk in to the emergency situation. And it wasn't until I had got coaxed into, looking through my medical record and seeing about getting, some disability from the VA, that when I looked at my medical records, I'm talking about from boot camp, I already had the hypertension designation in there, right? And didn't know about that. The same similar circumstances as yours. My situation is that I jumped I jumped on a plane and left where I was living at and turned my back on everybody save two or three people that I'm still close with now. And so I had no relationships with my biological family because of estrangement. And so when doctors or any type of little health questionnaires would come out and I would have to circle this or this and that, in all honesty, I circled no for all that stuff out of ignorance, not intentionally to hide something. But it wasn't until I started probing around and started to reestablish a few connections and relationships with family members, in particular my elders, and then coming to find out there's all these things that have been littered throughout my whole family history. That had I had knowledge of that, then that would have been something that I would have had to be more conscientious about, right? It wasn't until the doctor said, "Hey, you've reached stage one hypertension," when I was about 38, that I was like, "Okay, wait a minute. What is that?" And he's like, "Well, let's go ahead and pull out the little chart that shows you the little levels." And he was like, "Well, but the reality is that this is something you've probably had for a longer period of time. That this is not something that just happens." Because what used to happen to me is when I would go to the doctor in the military, most of the time it was because of injury. So I would already go in there stressed out and pissed off because I hated being injured. So having the red blood pressure reading wasn't anything that alarmed me because I'm like, I'm mad. Yeah, my blood pressure is at 148, 152 over whatever now because I'm in here with a broken ankle or with a broken nose or with a broken arm. I'm in here with an injury. And so I was very dismissive of that. And the doctors around me and the nurses were also as dismissive because they're looking at me and I look physically well. And so no one ever really stopped and said, wait, 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 hold on. What this is saying is that as your
yeah.
lifetime progresses, if you don't at some point in time start to address this, this is going to go to stage two and stage three. And when it gets to stage three, there's not really a such thing as going back down. What has to happen is you have to get medicated to a point in time. And then you get caught in this whole little cycle of now the medications start to have side effects of this and this and that. See, if when I was in my 20s, someone would have said, "Hey, I'm going to sit you down and have you look at this little hypertension table so you can see exactly what it looks like." All I knew was 120 over 80. The only thing that I ever knew was 120 over 80. Now, being on the other side of this, that's what babies have. That's like the optimal thing, right? From the moment that we start really, really engaging in this world and taking on stressors, we don't have 120 over 80. But as long as you're not past 130, you're right there in the normal threshold.
Long as you're,
One,
top, then because I
yeah,
have
yeah,
hypertension too. Long as your
yeah.
top number isn't consistently over, your bottom number isn't consistently over a hundo,
Yeah, yeah,
you're,
yeah. And so, but I didn't.
and
But
then
my thing
your
is that
resting pulse is also, as long as your
yeah,
resting pulse is between Healthy average is 50 to 70. Now, if you're a runner or are you always doing, you're going to be lower than 50. But if your
Yeah.
resting pulse is like over 90, then yeah, you might want to
Yeah.
get the
Yeah.
50 cent hookup.
Yeah, and I know guys in my peer group 4 or 5 years younger that have had to go, not just one, several handful of guys that had to go to urgent care or emergency care because their blood pressure reached 160 something over whatever, and their significant other or somebody was like, nah, look, get in the car, bro, like we're going. Like, yeah, you saying you feel good, you don't know what's really going on. No, we're going. And so my point with sharing this is that once I became aware of it, then I had to take ownership of it, right? And I looked at it and I said, okay, being in stage one isn't terrible. It's not like you're having all these things that happen. But after talking with you about your kidney thing, I was like, my goal was not to ever go into stage two, right? And so I had to take ownership and I had to get my hands on, just a little way. And this is just a little way to just check in and read, look, even on the box it says 120 over 80, right? So we're already being programmed to think that there's something wrong with you if your blood pressure isn't 120 over 80 every time you take it, right? But what I'm saying, folks, is that I had a predisposition to have a hypertension marker and it laid dormant inside of me my whole life, and it only became applicable once I had to go in and figure out what was going on with my chronic dehydration. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, these things are connected. Okay. If you are not keeping good blood flow, every single thing else is going to be impacted by it. And so I had a choice to make. I said, doc, I do not want to get to stage two, even though there's two more stages. I just didn't want to leave stage one because I feel like going to stage two means that you're going down the path to death. And so just like the average pharmaceutical rep, he's like, "Hey, I can go ahead and prescribe you this medication for to keep you down." And I'm like, "Yeah, but see, I've always been leery of that because one pill begets another pill begets another pill, and next thing you know, we in Deuteronomy, and it's just you got a whole bunch of pills that you have to take every day." And I was like, "I don't want to do that." So it wasn't until I started researching, I was like, "Wait a minute." If the issue is blood flow, then I want to see what happens holistically. What can I do holistically to try to circumvent that? Because if the medication has some of these holistic ingredients, but it's all synthetic, it's all stuff that's made in a laboratory, but it mimics something that is real that nature has, I'm going nature first. And I remember telling my ex-wife then, I was like, you know what, if this holistic journey doesn't go well, then because I want to have my kids have kids and me be there to be a part of that, I will take the blood pressure medication. But before I do anything like that, I'm gonna try and do it the natural way. And then when I had that conversation with my doctor, it was like we went from talking two different languages, and now all of a sudden he starts talking to me about holistic stuff, this, and that. And I started thinking in my mind, like, why would you not put this on the table up front?
But what I
But we
learned,
know. Go ahead.
but also what I learned too is doctors who are educated in America, they spend like less than one third of their time when they're going to doctor school on nutrition. But most of them, unless that's a passion for them as well, and most doctors only get into nutrition when they get older and they've made enough money where they can be a little they can almost be a little rogue in their processes, because a lot of things doctors, since it's heavily based in science,
Hmm.
it's not that the science can't change, but it's going to have to change over slow evolution and peer review before they're going to say whatever we used to say is no longer good, right? Give you an
Yeah.
example. In the 50s, there was ads that would say 3 out of 5 doctors smoke Winston Marlboro cigarettes. I don't think you'll find any doctor now that's going to swear to you smoking a cigarette. And if you did find one, you'd almost be like, nah, homie. Um, I learned too, dealing with hypertension and all this stuff. There's a lot of things like when you take certain medications for blood pressure. I can't, like, I used to love grapefruit, right?
Hmm.
One of the side effects on these medications is you can't eat grapefruit. So I used to wonder, if you have hypertension, why won't a doctor tell you just eat 5 grapefruit a day and we'll come back in 3 weeks and see what that does? But they'll give you a pill that now makes you light sensitive, so you can't be in the sun, even though natural sun vitamin D production in O positive people, or people with O blood, does work to lower your blood pressure. But they give you a medication that makes you light sensitive, and you can't have grapefruit. That's really odd, right?
Yeah. There's an irony in that coming.
Hmm?
I said, there's the irony in that coming. Share.
Yep. Yeah, or like Monsanto was good for like killing dandelion weed, right? But if you eat pure dandelion, dandelion's really good for hypertension. The tea as well as the root. But like the little yellow flower.
Yeah.
But when you find out Monsanto is owned by the same company that works for one of these blood pressure medications.
Yeah. I mean, that's the bro, man. That hey, for those of you that ain't reading between the lines, we talking about there is a vested interest in keeping people in the pharmaceutical vein and not in the holistic vein, right?
I'd
And
like to,
so,
yeah.
go ahead.
I was gonna say I'd like to share a book with folks, which because I keep talking about O positive. The majority of Black people in America are gonna find themselves to be O positive, small minority O negative, and because all cultures and all peoples are intermingled, you might have some A's and B's in there. But I recommend a book called Four Blood Types, Four Diets to Eat Right for Your Type. Right? I don't know if y'all can see that.
Mhm.
This has been a game changer for a lot of people to just understand. Remember, as I said in the beginning, the thing you want to look at is based off of your blood type, which is going to tell a lot of your genetic markers what type of diet works best for you, right?
Right.
And I really recommend that people in understanding, like, again, if you have O, because we're talking to black men, if you have O positive, O negative blood, you really need to watch your animal protein that you take and how much you eat a day, especially as you get older, and how much dairy you consume because that enzyme in that old blood does not break down. Like when they say, "Oh, I'm lactose intolerant," no shit, you're supposed to be. You don't have the certain enzyme necessary because you didn't evolve in Europe. You can't process animal fat like that because you don't come from a place where you have 10-month winter. You come from a place where you got 10 months sunshine. So you don't need that in your body. But if you have A or AB blood or B blood, you need that certain amount of protein and animal fat. I used to joke and take it off topic. Like I used to swear white people didn't get cold when I was in the military because I was like, man, I'll be outside freezing. And but when you start understanding certain genetic markers in blood, certain things you take from different.
Mm.
And then you get into the whole fact that if you got a letter in the mail saying they wanted you for medical research, you probably would say no. Most black people are going to say no for obvious reasons. So a lot of the data for medicines and how to treat conditions are based off of a white male who's 55 years old, who's A or AB negative blood or A or AB positive blood. So there's a lot of medications and a lot of treatment plans they prescribe on us only to realize after the data shows itself that hey, black people can't take certain blood pressure medications because we don't have certain enzymes, so we swell up. But the data isn't like, but like when they're using test people to see how this medication works, it's almost never going to be black people. So there's a part of treatment where it doesn't even recognize your genetic markers. And remember, medicine is kind of predicated on science. Not saying that science can't change, but everything is based off of like, okay, in a test case, how many times does this thing show itself out of 100 people? And if it shows itself at least 60% of the time, they will say that it's something that worth saying that we probably should look at this.
Yeah. Man, that's some food for thought right there, man. What I can appreciate about this, man, is that, we've been attempting to look at things from a learned perspective and then also from understanding social deficits and understanding, generational um gaps and how as fathers now we're looking at our responsibility to help to kind of shorten them gaps and to prepare our children for a future just based on the fact that we're very much aware of what's going on in our own anatomy and what's going on in, our own genetics, markers, et cetera, et cetera. For those of you that have rocked with us up to this point, man, a hats off to you, shots out to you. What we've done is we've had a little roundabout conversation about the importance of diet and understanding what a realistic diet is for your particular blood type, for your particular body type, and for your lifestyle. We talked about how important it is to stay active and to not become sedentary, because sedentaryism, if that's a word, is one of those things that will put you on that fast slope to being in a doctor's chair, being there talking about how something just isn't quite right anymore. We had a little lightweight little dialogue back and forth about the difference between access and luxury as it relates to healthcare, and identified some of the reasons why people of color haven't had the luxury of having, top notch, high scale healthcare, but then recognizing that in the day and age we live now, where we literally have a computer in our pocket, there's no reason why we should not have access to healthcare of some sort in a landscape, in a social and political landscape where more people have healthcare than ever before in our country. And the last we've been kicking around, educating yourself, becoming educated, hopefully not waiting until you're like us and having something that shows up on your radar to where now you don't have that luxury of putting your head in the stand. You literally have to decide, am I going to make a decision to live, or am I going to make a decision to just go ahead and accept this slow death, right? And in some cases, it might be a short, quick death if the certain markers in your body go unchecked, and then you don't go and get checkups, and then your first checkup is like, hey, we're in stage 3 out of 4 or 3 out of 5 in any one given thing. Once you get to that standpoint, there's no dialing back the hands of time and being able to get back on it. So if anything, what we want you to gather from this is that there's so many layers and so much nuance to this thing called healthcare and health. He and I both are huge proponents of this statement: health is wealth. It's part of our life, it's part of our lifestyle, it's something that we think about, it's something that we don't have the luxury of not thinking about anymore. And we just want to open up a dialogue for you to start doing a little personal inventory. Start thinking about, to what degree do you know your own body? To what degree are you willing to learn your own body? And to what degree are you going to stop making excuses and start acting as if these things that are happening to you are just normal things that happen when you become a middle aged or older advanced age, right? There's so many times that our body is going to try and get our attention, and we make a decision every single time. We're either going to listen to and try to find out what it is, or we're going to become dismissive and save it for another day, just thinking that we're just going to get to that end of the road at some point in time. So, what we're hoping is that this opens up your mind, and that this makes you aware that the number one responsibility you have is called survival. The number one thing that you have to think about is self-preservation, right? Everything that comes as an extension of you is going to be altered dramatically if you happen to go ahead and hit that upper room a little too early. You know what I'm saying? So, sign off
Oh, are you
from
stand?
the, huh?
I was gonna say, are you stand up too fast and all your engine lights come on?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great analogy, bro. That right there is exactly what you have to be mindful of by the time you hit that good flow. Oh, you need to understand. You need to get in that manual and make sure you understand what all them check engine lights mean. You know what I'm saying? Because they will hit you. And then you gotta have the courage to be like, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna and address this. I'm gonna go ahead and make a conscientious effort to figure out exactly what this is. I'm not gonna just try and pray this away. I'm not gonna just act like this is something that's just gonna go away on its own. I'm gonna be more proactive. So on that note, the dynamic duo is signing off until the next episode. If you was rocking with us to this end of this one, you are a real one. Like, subscribe, share this on your social media platforms. Talk about this at your dinner table. Talk about this out at the barbershop, at your place of business, anywhere you frequent where you see other people. Talk about health as well. Just go up to somebody and say, hey, what's your thought process on this? What is your thought process on this statement, health is wealth? That'll spark a great debate with somebody. Anything else to say on the way out, Pro?
And eat more green stuff, eat more fresh stuff, eat more fruit, eat more vegetables.
There you go. Hey, and lift something, push something, pull something, drag something, but
Hey,
move something.
Hallowed be thy gains, like they say in the Bible. Hallowed be thy gains.
Hallowed be thy gains. Bro, I can always count on you, man. All
What?
right, folks. Hey, until the next episode.